Hello, Change Now, day 3. Are we ready to change now? I didn't hear you. Are we ready to change now? That is better, that is better. Thank you, everybody. Sustainable city pioneers, reshaping our urban futures. What we're going to look at in this session is we're bringing together a very interesting group of people with diverse perspectives, and I'm so excited that you have chosen to spend your time with us. The way that our session is going to run today is we're going to have a keynote speaker, followed by a panel, followed by a fireside chat with a Ukrainian city that have flown in to come and see us and share their experience of sustainability in conflict. Now, before I introduce our keynote, I'd like to ask the audience, who here, by a show of hands, lives in a city? Very good. Keep them up, keep them up, keep them up. Now, keep them up if you live in what you think is a pioneering city. Right, well, we've got some people over there. Brilliant. Thank you very much, everybody. So, for our first guest, we have a speaker that believes that anyone, anywhere in the world, can become a biodiversity builder. This mission-driven entrepreneur is known for her leadership in fostering public engagement and collective action, something I hope you agree we need a lot of in 2024. From her first project in 2019 in Beirut, her company creates green infrastructure and reimagines the urban experiences. I cannot think of a better person to invite us to open our session. Please welcome founder and CEO of Sugi, Elise, and your keynote speaker today. Put your hands together.
Hi everyone, and good evening. So our cities are built upon ancient forests, and Sugi's mission is to bring them back. Let me see if that works. There we go. Oops. There. So, hi. Living in San Francisco, I would escape the city and find respite in the redwoods. I just loved spending time in those ancestral forests. And I thought, for me, that sensation of reconnecting with the wild, I thought it was fascinating. And as I moved back to Europe, I missed those forests. And I realized at that point I wanted to do something positively impactful. I wanted to find and contribute to an organization that could leverage the power of wild nature, and that would also bring hope and relief to communities. Now, as I couldn't find it, that is how Sugi was born. Sugi is anchored around 3 main pillars: biodiversity, well-being, and climate resilience. Our solution is based upon the Miyawaki method. You might have heard of it. We create ultra-dense, biodiverse pockets of forest, native species only, and the key is to plant densely. So these pockets, imagine me here on stage. That would be like 100 trees and shrubs. I would be standing between the birds and the bees. On minimal space, we can create maximum diversity. Now, they're really amazing. They cool the air, they clean the air, they act like sponges. We'll look at concrete examples in a second. But before we go there, I just, want to put the numbers out there. We started with 1 pocket forest in Beirut. And just to put things in perspective, 4 years ago, we had a booth here at ChangeNOW. Well, actually, it was at the Grand Palais. And it was a team of 2, it was me and Daniel. We had 7 forests created, co-founded. We had 5 forest makers. And so today, to have this network of 28 forest makers around the world, these expert Milwaukee forest makers. And also, like, through our brand partnerships, we were able to evolve from a grassroots movement into a leading voice around urban rewilding. Now, let's look at some concrete examples of how the method works. There we go. So this is a great example. Well, I want to go one back there. So first I want to show you sizes. We plant any size. This is really like a good range in the 200 projects that we currently almost have. It's like a 10 square meter, 1,000 square meter, and a 10,000. Now, 10 square meters, I mean, imagine this, after the blast in Beirut, a lot of damage done, and like, how can we like create the playfulness on the playgrounds? So we integrated these really small pockets of green. We'll talk more about it. 1,000 square meters, this was a parking lot. And Magdalena, our forest maker in Chile, she called us and she said, look, Elise, the soil dreams of being a forest. And when somebody says that to me, I'm like, yes, let's do this. So this is like, in not even 2 years, a dense wild forest. The 10,000 one is the biggest one in Europe and London, and the UK, I mean. So it's embarking in Dagenham, and it's 30,000 trees. Imagine the density there, in a place where there's almost no tree cover. Looking at those really small ones, right? This is the beauty of it. Like on any space, deep paving, we can rewild it, and also that idea of like that minimal space creates that maximum diversity. That's something really speaks to us. The idea of like heavy stormwater. Where does the water run through today in our cities where it's concrete on concrete? Well, these act as sponges, right? Beautiful example in Pakistan, country where there's a lot of there's a lot of like desertification. So how do you go against that? So we worked with our forest maker Shahzad there to really like revitalize the park. The steps of the method. Again, you might have heard of it. The method itself is really scientific. It starts with the soil. We really have to bring back the natural ingredients to our soils. Soils in cities are very deprived of any life. Once that is done, we plant densely. And this is a great example from top. It's like 3 trees per square meter. So imagine, we mulch heavily, and that creates a blanket, it creates an ecosystem in itself. And then in 2 years, we have this like self-sustaining forest. That was in Boston, Dennehy Park. Now, people. Without the people, for us, there's nothing. They're an integral part of our pillar. We plant with anyone, anywhere. We plant with communities. We plant with whatever staff. Sometimes we have plantings where people come in their uniforms, ready to go to work, and then we think, oh God, like they will never want to get into the soil, but no problem. They immediately connect together and like find each other on the mound of the forest. So that idea also of like biodiversity and climate change, right? These two conversations that have been really like pulled apart, but they belong together. And through that reconnection of people to nature, we really hope to restore the web of life. Okay, these were just some really fast examples of like where we can plant and how we can plant. Let's look at like a case studies where we really can talk about this triangle. Okay, maps. I do love maps, and while we were putting this map together, it really dawned on me, like we started with one pocket forest in December 2020. So over like a little more than 3 years, we've got 23 pocket forests in London. And when you look at the map, it's like you can see 3 clusters. So it's central London, Barking and Dagenham, and Newham. For each council estate, we will really tailor to what they need. In central London, you'll find unused spaces, biodiversity deserts, we'll transform them. Barking and Dagenham has an incredibly low tree cover and also low income. We'll create corridors. In Newham, which is a very pioneering council, we work with them on actually delivering their transition plan. And that is something beautiful. It's anchored around decarbonization, well-being, and biodiversity. And so it couldn't be a better fit than working together with them. But if you look at the map, you might say, God, what are these dots? But that's exactly right. It's like urban acupuncture. If you think of it, a bee can travel up to 2 to 3 kilometers. So this becomes like pollinator pathways and biodiversity corridors. And what we'd like to do is more of them, of course. Quickly, the examples. This is off Pond Street, Heritage Forest, 2 years old. Biodiversity desert. What happens between these plane trees? Like, there's not much life there. So we bring the life back. We planted 600 trees. That forest is self-sustaining now. We measure the temperature. So this is something else. When we created Sugi, it was a guiding principle from the start to make all the pocket forests accessible, but also tell the story far into the future. So we've set out KPIs, we created an impact report, and the latest KPI that we introduced is the temperature measurements. And so for us, it's really important to show, we speak about this, oh yeah, these pocket forests, they cool the air, but what does that really mean? And so this was just a warm, hot day, like Daniel went out to measure it, and you can see there's like 17 degrees difference right there. Great example of deep paving, a bit of engineering. South Bank, you must be familiar with it, like that typical brutalist complex. Well, there, it was actually the Hayward Gallery. They reached out and they're like, we want a pocket forest to bring the songbird, to bring the thriving nature, but also like cooling. And so we just planted this one, but it was really complicated because it's above a garage, so we had to engineer the soil, make it extra light, extra fluffy, and take out the canopy layer. Because another thing important with the Miyawaki method, you never plant one type of species. You always have a diverse mix of shrub, substrate, tree, and canopy, so 4 layers. So let's see, in a year, I'm very curious. Now, Barking and Dagenham, I mentioned that. If you see this road, I'm told it's the 7th most polluted road in London, if not the UK. And so creating this corridor, that didn't happen from one day to the other. We really had to create partnerships to really fund us to create this corridor. But today, people are loving it. It also is one of the very few, this is an important point, I blitzed a bit through all the numbers, but we have an 87% survival rate throughout on all our forests. And the thing is, if you look at this, in Barking and Dagenham, when it was that heat wave 2 years ago in London, the traditional trees planted didn't survive. And so our pocket forests survived. And through that density of planting and that beautiful soil, you create that resilience. Nature is complex. And without its complexity, we cannot build resilience. All right, Beirut, from London to Beirut. This is where we started with Adib. That was our first pocket forest, and the beauty here is that in Lebanon, public space has been sort of erased to avoid people coming together. And what we're doing here is to reclaim public space for the people, with the people. So the whole of it has been planted over 8 phases. 5 have been funded by Sugi. 1,200 people came to the planting. We planted in a revolution. That's actually the first picture there. That was during the revolution. It survived the blast. It survived an economic downfall. It's a place where people come together. They watch movies. They do art events. And they have fun. That's the point. Hold on. Now we're in Sao Paulo. The reason why I pull up this image, again, it was hard to choose. There's so many examples in so many countries. But here, again, low-income neighborhood. And I think of it, the Mata Atlantica, one of the most endangered forests. And so what we're doing in schools, these are CUs. They give access to 1,000 to 3,000 children for free education, free recreation. Everything is free. And so we want to create tree cover and wildness for them. And so the top 2 images you see just planted in Miyawaki, and underneath we're integrating food forest. And again, that's that idea of food sovereignty, right? Reconnecting people with nature, with the cashew, the sweet potato, and really having the children be part of it. Now, schools. We have planted in 116 schools. 52,000 children have connected through these plantings. And that goes from the UK, the first image. The US was a great example, by the way. I mean, Berkeley, California, why would you have grass there? Like, it's endless waterings, and now it's a forest. It cools the building, it gives fun to the kids, and it becomes actually they become the stewards of the forest. And then in India, we had a program which is called 50 Schools, 50 Forests. And look at the kids behind it. I mean, you can't even imagine, this is 3 years. All right, we're moving to the US. In the US, we actually weave a lot of indigenous knowledge through our forest. And there we work really hand in glove with our Native American, with that knowledge. So this is a correctional facility. This forest was planted to heal the mind and to reconnect with with the inmates. Today, in this forest, Mary Lee, who is a gatherer and a member of the Yakama tribe, told us, we have never over 100 years been able to forage 28 foods. I mean, it goes from the snowberry to the elderberry to the chokecherry to the rose, and they make teas for the elders. I'd love to end on this image. Number 200, our pocket forest to be planted next week. If anyone is in New York, you're welcome. But the thing is that it's really interesting because we launched a project 2 weeks ago, and in 3 days we had 230 million media impressions on this. We really were like a little bit dumbfounded, like what happened? And what it shows for us is that the reason why I'm telling you this is that I think people crave rewilding. People crave to be part of a solution. And we really hope to do more of them. So next time you hear about Sugi Pocket Forest, you'll know that there's much more to it than just the trees. We do not just plant trees. We create microbiomes that have a fourfold of impact. And with that comes a myriad of benefits. And to me, I mean, the environmental impact is big, but what stirs me the most is everything that is to do with the human stories. And that is the social and the inspirational. And yeah, and that's it. I thank you. Let's.
Hello. Okay. Right. Thank you so much, Elise. Urban acupuncture. Now that is a nice thought, isn't it? What we have got next is a panel with Carlota, Sanz, co-founder of the Doughnut Economics, and the Maire of Lyon, Grégory Doucet. If you can please join me on stage. Hello and welcome to Change Now.
Hello.
Your
Hello.
First time or you're back again?
Back again.
Back
Second
again.
time.
And what about you, Gregory?
That's my first time here.
First time.
Not in Paris, I mean, but for...
Not in
yes.
Paris, but for experiencing Change Now and all the amazing change makers that we gather in this room. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a short introduction to who these people are, and then we're going to dive straight into a conversation. So, Carlota, you believe in making regenerative economics accessible to all. You worked for a decade within the financial sector, and you looked then for alternative ideas at the Schumacher College, where you studied economic transformation whilst being the co-director of economy for the common good in the UK. Timely meeting with economist Kate Raworth, who published her economic model fit for the 21st century, known as the Doughnut Economics, led them to co-found the Doughnut Economic Action Lab. If Doughnut Economics was the theory, Doughnut Economics Action Labs was the way to bring the economics to life. So you're a strategic lead at Deal, and your work now focuses on enabling the concepts of Doughnut Economics to be turned into practice, whilst also enabling its spread with integrity. Welcome to Carlota.
Thank you. Thank you.
And so, Gregory, thank you so much for joining us today. You very much believe that transforming our urban economies need unity, collaboration, and a little dose of imagination. Inspired by the work of Gandhi, he became an environmental activist aged 16 and went on to spend almost 20 years in humanitarian work. As Director of Operations in West Africa, he led teams serving vulnerable populations across 10 countries, particularly around the Sahel region, before entering the world of politics. As an active member of Europe Écologie Les Verts, the French Green Party, he co-organized the Lyon Climate March and issued a call to unite all of Lyon's environmentalists to change Lyon, or Change Lyon 2020, when he won the municipal elections and was elected Maire of Lyon. So social, sustainability and society run very deep, and you're here today to share with us how one pioneering city is reimagining city life. So please welcome Mr. Doucet. Now, we're going to talk about what pioneering cities are doing today to reimagine their urban futures. And there is a common thread that we see with these cities that follow the Doughnut economics ideas. And so just in case anybody here hasn't come across the Doughnut economics theory, Carlota, would you be able to give us a speed tour of what Doughnut economics is, and especially that relevance and how it interplays with deal?
Absolutely, I'm going to try. Right, so it makes sense that we actually start by the doughnut, which is the concept that lies at the very heart of Doughnut economics and of Doughnut economics Action Lab. So very brief for those that don't or haven't seen it yet, we can think of it as a compass to guide humanity in the 21st century, where the aim is that no one is falling short of the essentials of life. So no one should be falling short on food, water, education, energy, a home, etc. So the idea is that everyone in the world, it's meeting their needs and it's living above that social foundation that we see there, while at the same time, and this is a big while, we cannot overshoot the ecological ceiling. And the ecological ceiling is made out of 9 planetary boundaries, which are the boundaries that keep this Earth a sweet home for everyone and for all the species living in it. So the idea is that we can not overshoot the ceiling. So we need to be living inside the sweet, safe, and just space that the doughnut brings. And so the immediate question then is, how do we get there? How do we get inside the doughnut? So that's the question that drives my work for sure. And Doughnut economics is a set of principles that helps us think how to get there. I'm going to talk very briefly about 2 of them because I think they're fundamental. Without them, we won't make it. We need to leave behind our extractive and linear industrial system, which that's the one, that, like the linear taking Earth's materials, making them into stuff, continuously using for a while and then throwing them away. That's exactly what's pushing us out of planetary boundaries. We need to turn it around and create a system that is regenerative by design. So a system that is living and working with and within the cycles of the living world. And this means that we're, of course, going to be relying only on green and renewable energy, but also we're going to be using our resources much more carefully, much more creatively, much more collectively. So that's the first one, regenerative by design. And the second one, which sometimes we tend to forget, and without it we won't make it either, we need to create economies that are distributive by design. So we've inherited economies that centralize power and wealth and opportunity in the hands of the very few. And we need economies that distribute this power, these opportunities and wealth in the hands of many more. So we need economies that are distributed by design. So that's a brief explanation of some of the concepts of Doughnut economics. My brilliant colleague, Kate Rayworth, explained it beautifully in her book. And yeah, so I definitely encourage you to read it. And when I met her, I think that what was clear is that the ideas were very much ready to jump off the page. We observed that many people, many change makers across so many areas wanted to bring these ideas into practice. They were already doing it, in fact, and so we thought, well, how can we create an organization that enables and supports these practitioners that want to take the theory to the practice? And we created Doughnut Economics Action Lab. We say that the name is very intentional. It is about creating action out of ideas. And we're doing it in the spirit of experimentation because we haven't done this before. So we want to really learn with the practitioners, with the pioneers that are putting this into practice, what would it mean to create economies that indeed are regenerative and distributive by design.
Thank you. That is not an easy thing to summarize a book in 2 minutes. I think Carlota did a great job. Grégory, I'm going to come to you, but maybe let's ask the audience first. Who here, show of hands, has been to Lyon? Wow, very good, very good. So for those unhappy people, like even myself, that have not been to Lyon, can you give us a sense of what your city is like, what it's like to live there and work there, and whether you have ever taken inspiration from the Doughnut economics ideas?
So hopefully a Doughnut practitioner. But aside from that, Lyon is the third most populated city in France, famous, of course, for its gastronomy, famous for its 2,000 years UNESCO in heritage, famous for hosting two of the most beautiful rivers in the country, but also probably less famous for being one of the most affected city by climate change. That's the reason why we have a very high conscience of the necessity to act on the climate change consequences on the city, and that's also the reason why I have engaged with all, of course, my executive, the city into, let's say, high-level engagement, which is we want to be carbon neutral by the year 2030. We won't make it alone, and to reach that goal, we have engaged the city in a European Commission mission of our program, which is called 100 climate neutral and smart cities by 2030. So hopefully we are actually supported by the European Commission to reach that goal. But let's say that as a mayor and with all the action that we are implementing on the territory of Lyon, we are only responsible for 5% of the carbon emission. So we need to mobilize the rest of the stakeholders of the city, including, of course, citizens, to reach that goal. So 95% of the emission needs to be lessened by companies, associations, and citizens. So that's for us a very big challenge that we have started to actually overcome.
And just to pick up on that point, when you say that you are most at risk, can you give us a sense of how that's come about? Is that because of a risk report, or is that because people are feeling the effects of the actual heat waves?
We actually feel the change already for a couple of years. Actually, last summer we have experienced heat waves of 12 days with more than 40 degrees during daytime, and during nighttime the temperature remain above 25 degrees. Meaning to say that with this kind of temperature you can't sleep properly, you can't actually work or do sport or just live normally. So we already see what's happening let's say in our environment. We feel it with our body. So that, I believe, gave us probably a higher conscious of the necessity to act, and to act quickly.
So if I just carry on that flow, what was your starting point to act? Because like you say, you're having to mobilize 95% of everybody else beyond, and so that's got you. Where do you start, and what has been some of the tools that you've brought in to be able to do that?
Mobilizing people is actually key. So of course, if I just pretend that I will save the city or the world by myself, nobody will probably be confident enough to follow us. So we need to just first explain the goal and say that this is not a city goal. I mean, this is not only the goal for the city hall, but that's a goal that must be carried on by everybody. And what's at the same time surprising but also very enthusiastic is that once we have declared that we want to reach that carbon neutrality by 2030, I mean, we receive a very large enthusiasm from, for instance, from universities. I mean, all the university system in Lyon is actually committed to reach carbon neutrality by 2030. And then companies, including bankers, including transportation companies, including construction companies as well, willing to be also committed, willing to commit. Um, so one, let's say, one of the key factor of success for me, for sure, is to create common goals. It's to identify what we have in common. To a certain extent, I would say that this is exactly what we are experiencing here today, right now. I mean, this Change Now summit is actually about, let's say, gathering people who have maybe different backgrounds, maybe different engagements, but with, let's say, common goals. And this is key for me. So this is what we are actually doing in Lyon as far as carbon neutrality is concerned.
And so, Carlota, if I can bring or come back to you, because you're working on a global level, and not just cities, but today obviously we're looking at cities specifically. And to pick up on this point of goals, I guess what the Doughnut Economics Action Lab helps cities do is identify those goals. I believe your first city was Amsterdam. It was very famous in the press. That's certainly where I became more aware of it. Can you give us a sense of some of the tools and techniques that cities are using to be able to redefine their...
Sure. So just firstly to recognize that since the Doughnut was published, like a lot of the energy or the interest that was coming was how do we use this tool, which is a global concept, so it speaks about our planetary home, to explore what would it mean to live in thriving people and thriving balance within our locality. So one of the first things that we did at Deal was actually to create a framework that allowed to take this global concept to a particular place, and that's probably the starting point of all the places, not only cities, but many different regions that have started exploring the Doughnut. And it basically opens up the question of what would it mean to create cities that are a home for thriving people in a thriving natural habitat. So a lot of like looking into the local aspirations from a social and ecological perspective, but with the global responsibilities in mind. So how can this be a thriving home for thriving nature and people within the limits of the living planet and taking into account the well-being of all people? And that's a very ambitious question that cities that have come to us are exploring very courageously. And they've done it in many different ways. So Amsterdam was the first city indeed very publicly saying, we're going to use the Doughnut. They did it, and they used this framework for cities to help them redefine their circular strategy. So they rethought their circular strategy, taking into account not only the ecological but the social ambitions. And since then, what we saw is that a lot of other cities, other mayors, other city councils started to reach out. And it's been really incredible to see that power of peer-to-peer inspiration, like how some mayors inspire other mayors. You know, that was incredible to see. And over the past years, we've got more than 80 local governments engaging with the concepts in different ways. And I think that's a key point. We've made it particularly open so that any place, any region, any city government can approach these ideas from where they are. And I think that means that there's not that many commonalities in the sense that there's very different entry points. And so different cities are using it maybe a lot, for sure a lot, to help them design data indicators, so new ways of measuring progress, but also as a guiding framework to set goals. So how do we create collective strategies within a city? That's what they've been telling us, that it's very useful because it brings a holistic picture of what that goal could be. But also some of the cities that are even going further, they're really embedding them or embedding these principles in all of the decision-making processes. I think that's what it became when it becomes really, really interesting. And maybe just to close here, a few cities. So of course, Amsterdam, Glasgow has been really committed and working with the Doughnut. The Brussels region, amazing champion for sure. Barcelona, yeah, in Spain for sure. I'm very proud of that as well. And many more. Ipoh in Malaysia. We're starting to see actually how more cities in other parts outside of Europe are also adapting the concept, and it means different things for them as well. And I'll just say that maybe the one commonality that we're seeing in those cities that are perhaps going to a different level of ambition to, really taking this seriously, I think they do need the political will. So that's why we also need, really courageous and pioneering political leaders that are backing up, and that's really key for this to really work.
Thank you. So, Grégory, I know when I was researching for this session, I came across a tool that you were implementing called a well-being compass. And I guess that's one of the tools that you're doing to help move everybody together. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
As Carlota said earlier, I mean, even if we are not a purist practitioner of the Doughnut approach, I have to confess that it has been very inspiring, because if earlier I was talking about the necessity, of course, to tackle the issue of climate change and to at the same time to reduce our carbon emission and to adapt the city, because I mean climate change is already here. You were asking me about heat waves, and I was answering that it's already experienced by people. So we have to do both reduction and adaptation. And at the same time, as a mayor, my ultimate goal, to be honest, is not to fight climate change. I'm sorry to say that here, but I mean my ultimate goal is the well-being of people, is the well-being of the people of Lyon. So how can I do that? And basically it's linked with what you call the social dimension of the Doughnut. I have to be able to actually measure the well-being of people, but before that I have to know what is the definition of well-being for people, because I cannot provide well-being for people without people themselves being aware of what well-being is all about. So I have to ask them. This is what we did actually. We designed this well-being compass with groups of citizens, asking them, okay, what's important for you? What is your definition, not of success, but of well-being? And so step by step, we designed a tool with 12 different categories. I will not necessarily mention them right now, but with that, we have quite a clear view of people's expectation as far as their well-being is concerned. And this is then used as a tool to see if our public policies are actually going on the appropriate direction. But if I may add, this is not enough actually to, let's say, to give us quite a clear direction on what we are doing, because this well-being compass is one of the three monitoring tools that we are using for our public policies. A second one is a very simple one, which is related with our mandate plan. At the beginning of the mandate, we have explained to people what will be the content of our action plan during the 6 years mandate. More or less, this was just a copy-paste of our program, basically, our political program. And of course, we made commitments, so we need to measure, because we are accountable to the people, we need to measure if actually we are implementing this plan of action, this mandate plan. So we have set up such a tool. And in addition to that, because I told you before that that addressing climate change issue, the climate change issue is actually one of our priority. We also need to see, to measure if our action contributes to this. So we have set up an ecological transition dashboard, which actually measure not the outputs that we deliver with the action plan through the implementation of our action, but we actually measure the outcomes of what we are actually doing. So we look at the quality of air, the quality of water, things like this, the number of square meters of let's say of nature that we were able to actually provide to people in addition to what's existing, for instance.
And we might see some pocket forests popping up in Lyon.
It can be seen already, actually.
Oh, very good, very good. So we're about to run out of time, but I always like to steal the very last question of one of my very favorite podcasts, Outrage and Optimism, which is a question that I think is perfect for our time. So I'm going to start with you, Carlota. What is something that makes you outraged, but what is something that makes you feel optimistic?
That's a powerful question, and I think that I always like to think that, well, what I'm saying is that it's to some extent, even though sometimes it feels slowly, and that might be a bit, it is happening. So, you know, what gives me hope and what makes me optimistic, it's particularly from my experience, it's seeing all the stories of how pioneers are indeed bringing these ideas into practice. And we spoke today a lot about cities, but I'm seeing amazing pioneers in teaching in schools new economic ideas. I'm seeing students wanting and asking for new economic thinking to be taught in their classrooms. I'm seeing some businesses really trying and starting to think how can they deeply transform. So I think that all of these stories of practice really give me optimism. At Deal, we always say that 21st century economies will be practice first and theorized later. And so I'm very happy that we're trying, because unless we try, we won't make it.
And what about you, Grégory? Something that makes you outraged and something that makes you optimistic?
To be honest, being here is quite is synonymous with being optimistic, because we are here with lots of people willing to go further, willing to change the world and to make it a better world. But if you allow me, let me just share you one of the, let's say, one of the pride actually that that I like to share with you today about one thing that we did. Um, Young kids in municipal kindergarten right now in Lyon. Uh, so when I say young kids, from 0 to 3 years old, they eat 100% organic food in kindergarten, and 80% of this food comes from local producers.
Wow.
And we started from 0 basically. So that shows how quick changes could happen.
And on that
And
note,
as long as, I mean, everybody is mobilized, and I have to tell you that all the civil servants in the city are so enthusiastic about this kind of change, because they see, I mean, very quickly they see how it is beneficial for children. So this is a very simple example, but for me, very illustrative of, let's say, how quick we can make change happen.
well, I can't think of a better way to finish. So thank you very, very much to our panel. Thank you. So next up, we have got, yes, before you run away, there is a very, very interesting session coming up, and someone I've been really looking forward to meeting in person. We have the Vice Mayor and Secretary of the City Council of Vinnytsia, all the way from Ukraine, to talk to us about the role of sustainability of a pioneering city in conflict. So if you could please welcome Pavlo Yablonsky and his translation by Svitlana Yarova. Well, thank you so much for coming here. It's so nice to meet you both. So what we're going to do, Pavlo has many, many talents, but English on such a big stage wasn't going to be quite right. So we're working as a three-way translation. So I'm going to ask the questions to Pavlo, and Svitlana is going to help translate. But please know that Svitlana is also a elected member of the City Council of Vinnytsia. So thank you so much for being here. So let me just introduce Pavlo Yablonsky. So he very much believes that sustainability is a mindset. And this has been tested in ways that very few of us can imagine. Following a long career in the private sector, he became a politician in 2010 and a vice mayor and secretary of the City Council of Vinnytsia, the Ukrainian city long known for its pioneering mindset. He's overseen the integration of sustainability into every fabric of city life. Vinnytsia was the first Ukrainian city to sign up to the EU's Green Deal, along with a fellow other pioneering cities. And here to share with us their story of sustainability, resilience and hope, it is my immense pleasure to welcome Pavlo. So big round of applause for Pavlo. And
thank you.
If I can ask you first, Pavlo, I've not been to your city. I've looked at Google Maps and Google Earth, and Google, and it looks amazing. Can you give us a feel for your city? Tell us about what Vinnytsia felt like every day before February 2022, and a sense of its position relative to Ukraine. So if you can.
Доброго дня, шановні учасники, пані Елізабет. В першу чергу хочу подякувати за запрошення.
Good afternoon, dear participants. Elizabeth, thank you first of all for an invitation.
Хочу подякувати кожному в цій залі за підтримку, за те, що ви не байдужі до війни, яка відбувається в Україні.
I'd like to thank each of you in this room that your support of Ukraine's cities and you're not staying outside of our war, common war, which is happening now in Ukraine.
За те, що ви підтримуєте нас в боротьбі проти російської агресії.
Thank you for fighting for this fight against Russian aggression.
Перший слайд.
Oh, let me do that.
Повертаючись до вашого запитання і Вінницю до мирних часів.
Coming back to your question and to peaceful times in Vinnytsia.
Я хотів запитати, чи хтось в залі чув про Вінницю?
It is important for me to know if somebody heard about Vinnytsia here in this area.
І хочу запитати, а хто був в Україні?
Are there people who have been in Ukraine? Please raise your hands.
Супер, дякую.
Thank you.
Отож, Вінниця – це місто в центрі України.
So Vinnytsia is a middle-sized city in the center of Ukraine.
На перетині всіх автомобільних шляхів і всіх залізнодорожних шляхів.
In the intersection of all highways connection of our railway connections and highway connections.
Шляхи, які з'єднують Україну з Європою.
Highways connecting our country with Europe.
Вінниця до війни – це потужний транспортний хаб.
Before the war, Vinnytsia is a powerful transportational hub.
В якому наявні унікальні можливості поєднання транспортних, залізнодорожних та авіаперевезень.
It has unique opportunities for combining air transport with rail and road transportation.
Вінницький залізнодорожний вокзал входить в топ-5 в Україні по пасажирським перевезенням.
Vinnytsia railway station is in the top 5 in Ukraine in terms of passengers traffic.
До війни у Вінниці функціонував міжнародний аеропорт.
Before the war, it was an international airport in Vinnytsia.
До війни ми напрацювали пріоритети і цілі міського розвитку.
Before the war, we developed priorities and goals for urban development.
Це людиноцентричність, добробут та відкритість.
So it's human-centralized and openness and well-being.
Такі цінності нашого міста.
This is the values of our city.
Ще один важливий факт про Вінницю.
One more important fact about Vinnytsia you should know.
За результатами дослідження IRI, Вінниця 8 разів поспіль визнана найкомфортнішим містом для життя в Україні.
According to the IRI survey, Vinnytsia has been recognized as the most comfortable city to live in Ukraine 8 years in a row.
Також Вінниця має 3 відзнаки Ради Європи.
Also, Vinnytsia has 3 Council of Europe awards.
Та перший в країнах Східного партнерства сертифікат European Energy Awards.
And the first European Energy Award certificate in the Eastern Partnership countries.
Вінниця до війни розвивається відповідно до тенденцій інших європейських міст.
Before the war, Vinnytsia was developing in line of the trends of other European cities.
Інтегруючи всі наші програми і стратегічні документи в глобальні цілі сталого розвитку та принципи зеленого курсу.
Integrated the global sustainable development goals and Green Deal's principles into our program and strategic documents.
Так, у березні 2019 року за підтримки урядів Швейцарії та Німеччини була розроблена концепція інтегрованого розвитку 2030.
In March 2019, with the support of government of Switzerland and Germany, we developed the concept of international integrated development strategy till 2030.
Це рамковий документ, який визначив просторові і змістовні пріоритети розвитку нашого міста.
This is the framework document that defines our special and substantive priorities in the city development.
На базі нього сформовано стратегію розвитку міста до 2030 року.
In this document, it is the basis for the city development strategy until 2030.
Вінниця, попри воєнні виклики, намагається дотримуватись встановлених раніше цілей і працювати заради життя та майбутнього.
Despite the military changes, despite the military challenges, Vinnytsia is trying to adhere to the goals set earlier and work for the sake of life and the future, defying the Russian aggression.
При цьому не підкорюючись спробам російського тероризму зруйнувати наші плани.
Not following, defying Russian terrorism assumptions to destroy our plans.
Вінниця до війни у січні 22-го року першою в Україні долучилась до цілей європейського зеленого курсу.
Before the war in January 2022, Vinnytsia was first city in Ukraine who signed Green Deal.
З метою досягнення кліматичної нейтральності,
The goal is to achieve climate neutrality,
скорочення викидів парникових газів,
reduce greenhouse gas assumptions,
декарбонізації
decarbonization,
та впровадження принципів циркулярної економіки у життя міста.
and implement circular economy principles in our city life being.
Міську енергетичну політику підтримують цільові програми відшкодування за альтернативні джерела енергії для бізнесу та будівництва сонячних електростанцій.
The city's energy policy is supported by a target reimbursement program for alternative energy sources for businesses and the construction of solar power plants.
Ціль збереження різноманіття водних систем реалізується через проекти очищення річки Південний Буг.
One of the biggest projects of our goal, the goal of preserving biodiversity and water system, is realized through projects of clean up the Pivdenny Bug River.
Річка Південний Буг є джерелом водопостачання міста.
Pivdenny Bug River is the city water supply.
Та є найдовшою річкою в межах України.
And also it is the longest river in Ukraine.
Вінниця до війни. Система транспорту міста була визнаною кращою в Україні.
Vinnytsia before war, Vinnytsia's transportation system was recognized as the best in Ukraine.
Електричний транспорт обслуговує 75% всього пасажиропотоку.
Electric transport serves 75% of all traffic in Vinnytsia,
Це понад 130 мільйонів пасажироперевезень на рік.
which is more than 130 million passengers a year.
В співпраці з швейцарською агенцією співробітництва та завдяки власному виробництву трамваїв та тролейбусів ми успішно змогли реалізувати транспортну реформу.
In cooperation with the Swiss Agency of Cooperation and thanks to our production of trams and trolleybuses, we have successfully implemented the transport reform, and representatives of SECA already been here. We saw them, so huge greetings for them as well.
Через постійні атаки Росії зруйновано автопарки в багатьох містах.
Due to Russian constant attacks, Russian fleets in many cities have been destroyed.
Вінниця частину автотранспорту передала таким містам, як Дніпро, Миколаїв, Балаклія, Херсон.
We have transferred some of electric vehicles to the city Dnipro, Mykolaiv, Balaklia, and Kherson.
Розвиток велоінфраструктури в нашій громаді був визначений як найкраща практика в рамках European Energy Awards у 2022 році.
So you already heard that the development of bicycle infrastructure is recognized like the best practice according to European Energy Award in 2022.
Вінниця до війни вже 15 років запроваджує принципи інклюзії. Не лише в просторових рішеннях, а й у спробах мислення, світогляді та знімає обмеження.
For more than 15 years, the city before the war has been implementing the principles of inclusion, not only in special solutions, but also in ways of thinking.
Проте нам ще є куди рухатись, і питання безбар'єрності для українських міст стає надважливим.
However, we still have a long way, and the issue of barrier-free accessibility is becoming extremely important for Ukrainian cities.
Враховуючи кількість людей з інвалідністю, яка зростає щодня через російську агресію.
Given the number of the people with disabilities, which is growing every day due to the daily attacks on civilian infrastructure.
На сьогодні в місті Вінниці 490 осіб втратили кінцівки внаслідок війни.
As of today, 490 people in relatively peacefully Vinnytsia has been disabled, and as a result of the war.
1800 осіб в рамках Вінницької області.
And 1,900 people in Vinnytsia region.
Вінниця до війни розвивалась надзвичайно стрімко.
Vinnytsia before war developed extremely fast.
В місті вироблялись комплектуючі для Mercedes-Benz.
The city produced components for Mercedes-Benz.
Відшивались костюми Hugo Boss.
And Hugo Boss suits.
Якщо хтось із вас має костюм такого бренду, скоріш за все він відшитий в Вінниці.
Perhaps one of you is wearing a suit of this brand maybe today. So if yes, probably it was suited in Vinnytsia.
Активно розбудовувались індустріальні парки.
Industrial parks in the area was developed fastly.
В таких напрямках як агрофуд, холодильне обладнання, машинобудування, альтернативна енергетика.
In the area of agri-food, refrigeration, mechanical engineering and alternative energy.
Всесвітньо відома компанія виробник спортивного обладнання Head придбала земельну ділянку і, незважаючи на війну, розпочала будівництво найбільшого в Європі заводу з виробництва обладнання для зимових видів спорту.
One of the world famous brands for winter sport equipment hat company. Probably you heard about this company, or maybe you have tennis rackets or skis of this company producing. They has acquired a land plot and started constructing the largest winter sports equipment plant in Europe. The largest in Europe.
Коротко, так Вінниця жила до початку Великої війни.
So we come to the 24th of February 2022, and we don't have very much time, but do maybe give us a very short sense of what life is like now before we can then understand how you're able to still think about sustainability in that landscape. So I know you have a video.
24 лютого 22 року стало переломною датою не тільки для Вінниці, не тільки для України, а й для всього світу.
This date, February 24, 2022, was a turning point for all Ukrainians and for the whole world.
Подивіться, на слайді це самісінький центр міста.
Look at the slide, is the very center of the city.
Це велика транспортна розв'язка.
There is a major transportation interchange.
Тут є медична клініка, офісний центр, концерт-хол. Тут завжди дуже багато людей.
There are lots of people all the time. Here is an office center, a medical clinic, and a concert hall.
Так було до 14 липня 22 року.
That was the case until July 14, 2022.
– 14 липня 22 року сталася страшна трагедія.
On July 14, 2022, a terrible tragedy occurred.
3 крилаті ракети Росії влучили в центр міста.
3 Russian cruise missiles hit the city center.
Вони влучили в медичну клініку, офісний центр, зруйнована концерт-хол. Була велика парковка, де було багато людей.
So, a local clinic, an office center, a parking lot, and the concert hall were hit.
Внаслідок удару загинуло 29 людей.
As a result of this strike, there were 29 civilians killed,
З них 3 – це діти.
including 3 kids.
200 людей було поранено, 100 з них шпиталізовано.
200 people were wounded and almost half of them were hospitalized.
І все це зробила Росія.
All of this was done by Russia.
Я привіз з собою шматочок ракети, яка влучила.
And I brought a piece of dust, a piece of rocket, which was there.
Так виглядає смерть.
That's how death looked like.
If there's a video, we're going to be out of time. So, can we play the video, please? Yeah, we're going.
Я хочу сказати, що це був не єдиний удар по Вінниці.
I want to say that it was not only one strike in the city.
6 березня 22 року був ракетний удар по міжнародному аеропорту Вінниця.
March 6, 2022, it was a missile attack in Vinnytsia International Airport.
16 березня 22 року був ракетний удар по комплексу телевежі.
March 16, 2022, a strike on a TV tower complex.
Висота телевежі 354 метри, і вона вистояла.
It is 354 meters high, taller than 354 meters.
Вище за Ейфелеву вежу.
It's taller than Eiffel Tower.
Також було багато інших атак.
And it was lots of other strikes.
Okay, so Svitlana, just to say, we're out of time, but I really want to give a sense. So it's so important for us to hear about the realities on the ground. And when we spoke ahead of this session, I was really moved by your sense of what you're having to balance between living and feeling this tangible destruction, but then still maintaining the mindset of sustainability. So without the slides, please, can you give us, and can you just ask Pavlo to give us a sense of how he is able to maintain a sense of future and incorporating sustainability?
Якщо можна, хоча б одне відео, як змінилось наше життя.
If it's possible to show this video, and
We're out of time, so yeah. So and if we can ask the question, just because we're here to talk about sustainability in terms of the mindset, and we'll play the video at the end. Maybe.
Окей, дякую. Це лише невеличка частина того, як зараз ми живемо. Переходимо до сталого розвитку.
So yeah.
about our sustainability.
Yeah, you can't. We've got to stop. So we just need to have an answer, without the slides, around how do you manage the two between the conflict that you're in. I mean, many of us would think, can you even think about sustainability, or where does sustainability come in to the equation now?
Хочу сказати, що минула зима через російські ракетні удари була дуже важкою.
Last winter, because of missile attacks, was very difficult.
Українські міста охопила темрява і холод. Гуркіт генераторів – це вже була привична справа.
Ukrainian cities were gripped by darkness and cold. The roar of generators becomes a common sound.
Тому ми зараз багато уваги приділяємо альтернативним джерелам енергії.
Therefore, is one of our main points to build alternative energy sources.
Ми маємо стратегічний підхід до муніципального управління.
We have strategically approach in municipal managing.
І надважливим для нас є поняття сталості і стійкості.
And it's super important for us sustainability and resilience.
В сьогоднішніх умовах українським містам необхідно максимально об'єднувати ці два поняття.
And nowadays, Ukrainian cities have to combine these two points, sustainability and resilience.
В Україні вже утворилося понад 600 тисяч тонн відходів внаслідок руйнувань.
In Ukraine, it has already generated more than 6,000 tons of waste from the destructions.
За попередніми підрахунками, для відновлення потрібні декілька десятиліть.
According to preliminary assessments, it will take at least decades to restore the damage that has been done as for 2023.
Тому, опираючись на принципи зеленого курсу, ми напрацювали пакет проєктів відновлення.
That's why, based on Green Deal values, we have developed a package of recovery projects.
So what I'm hearing from this conversation is that you went into the war, or before the war, you were always a pioneering city. Before even sustainability, you were leading the way in Ukraine. You've now been forced into several shocks, which you've reacted to, and then now you are in a position where you're looking to build new, better. Is that right? And just one very last word, because we are very out of time.
Звичайно, будувати нове краще, але будуючи нове, ми маємо думати і про наслідки, які сьогодні після війни утворилися в Україні. І коли ми робимо проекти на пошкоджені або нові об'єкти, ми враховуємо також перспективи на десятиліття з врахуванням безпеки, яка може бути в зв'язку з таким сусідом, як Росія.
Because of course build new better is our approach, but our main point is to include all that security necessary things when we build some new projects, according that we have such a unstable neighbor like Russia.
Thank you ever so much. I'm so sorry we've run out of time, but they are not rushing away. So please, please, I do encourage everybody to come and meet with our guests. But just to finish, I want to thank you all for taking the time to come and listen to this session today. We've heard about urban acupuncture. We've heard about the need of extra resilience and sustainability mindset, because climate change is here, not a future problem, and that sustainability really is a mindset. Thank you very much, and to all of our speakers.
Thank you.
Thank you, дякую. Слава Україні!